There comes a day when the soul grows weary of an old life. The comfort of the familiar becomes a cage, and a whisper from within calls for a great and difficult change. This moment is the true beginning, a silent and profound declaration that a new path must be forged. Listen now, as the great work of that day commenced. There exists a special moment in the course of human existence when the entire preceding life, which had seemed so unshakable, suddenly acquires shades of foreignness and falsehood. A person standing on the threshold of this internal revelation feels a deep, piercing weariness with the familiar scenery and well-trodden paths. In this crucial instant, he senses that the walls of his former world, built from stability and comfort, have become prison bars, restricting his true space. This inner emptiness and silence is not a defeat, but a sacred invitation to change that comes to everyone who is ready to hear it. An invisible, yet powerful impulse permeates his consciousness, gently whispering that everything before this was merely preparation, a slow and unconscious prelude to a real life. For a long time, he had felt this growing heaviness and dissonance between his external existence and the deepest internal potential that demanded to be released. His entire reality felt like a closed loop of repetitive days, where each new dawn resembled the last, and every action lost its original meaning, turning into a mechanical gesture. It was this oppressive feeling that served as the catalyst for a decisive action, which began not with external searching or a rebellious display, but with a quiet, yet indestructible act of internal choice. In that fateful hour, when a complete clarity replaced his usual apathy, he took his first step into the unknown, having not the slightest idea about the future. This fundamental internal choice is not simply a desire to have more or become someone else. It is a radical and irreversible decision to abandon the part of himself that no longer serves his growth, but only drags him down, chaining him to the past. The true wealth that is so often spoken of does not begin in financial reports or bank accounts, but in the silent depths of consciousness. It is an internal state of absolute, unshakable confidence and knowledge of one's path that cannot be bought or stolen. His initial act of will can be compared to the moment when a sculptor for the first time in his life touches a block of raw marble, not yet seeing the beautiful form within it, but already knowing of its potential existence. Or when an artist stands before a clean canvas, absolutely certain that an image he must reveal to the world already lives inside him. This choice is like the first flash of a divine spark that ignites in the chest and begins to illuminate a path recently covered in the darkness of uncertainty and doubt. From this moment, the true discipline of the spirit begins, which manifests in a firm resolve to take actions that lead to one's highest destiny. It was on this very night, when the city lights outside the window seemed dim and insignificant, and all the familiar objects around him lost their former weight, that he made his final decision. He made it not with his head, but with his entire being, with every one of his cells, with every single exhalation. It was a silent promise given to himself that from this moment on he would act differently, live by new laws created by his own mind and will. This commitment was not about finding new opportunities on the side, but about creating and forming himself as a person capable of attracting and holding these opportunities. True wealth, as his inner voice intuitively told him, does not come to those who simply wait for luck, but to those who become its magnet, building their own temple of perseverance, discipline, and profound inner peace. This quiet but most important moment in life marked the beginning of his new story, and his former life with its limitations and fears was henceforth left as a mere shadow. When the inner choice has been made and the old world begins to slowly dissolve, the time comes for the most difficult and most liberating work, a time for honest and deep self-reflection. In the depths of every person's soul, not only mistakes and failures are buried, but also cherished dreams that one day had to be abandoned in favor of an illusory peace. Now that the old anchors have been released, it is time to carefully bring these forgotten images to the surface of consciousness. Remember those sparks of passion that once burned so brightly, those ideas that filled your heart with a trembling hope, those projects you dreamed of but never dared to begin. Where are they now? They have not disappeared, but were simply buried under a thick layer of habits, fears, and social approval, which always seemed more important than your own calling. For long years, perhaps decades, a person unconsciously traded their true essence for a semblance of stability. This stability is nothing more than an artfully woven net of compromises, routine, and comfort that slowly but surely strangles life energy. You built your house on the shaky foundation of others' expectations, while your own inner temple remained in oblivion. The habitual rut in which the days moved created a false sense of security, lulling the mind with the thought that everything was fine and would always be this way. However, the price for this peace was too high. You exchanged your freedom and ability to create for predictability and calm, burying your most important dream in this deal. This trap, although it seems cozy, is in fact the most insidious trial for the spirit, because it does not frighten, but soothes, making you forget your true purpose. But today, this act of remembrance should not become a reason for grief or endless regrets about the past. On the contrary, it is not a defeat, but a necessary stage of preparation for the next great leap. Imagine that all these missed opportunities, all the unrealized projects and forgotten dreams are not dead pages of history, but seeds that were cast into the soil and waited a long time for their moment. They were waiting for the inner strength to mature within you, the strength that could bring them to life. All your past disappointments, all the delays, all the moments when you gave up, were in fact lessons that tempered your will, made you more receptive to the signs of fate, and prepared you to make a new, more meaningful decision. Without this period of deep immersion in inertia, you would never have been able to feel the thirst that is now awakening in you, and you would not have fully appreciated the value of your new choice. Therefore, a real breakthrough begins not when new opportunities appear in your life, but at the moment when you decide that you can no longer exist in the old conditions and begin to act, relying on an internal impulse. Your lost dreams, once cast aside, now become your most powerful fuel. Each of them carries a charge of energy that was waiting for its liberation. This is similar to how dry grass after a long winter is just waiting for the first spark to burst into a bright flame. Your inner flame, ignited by a conscious choice, is now ready to consume the old reality and release the accumulated potential. This is not the end, but only the beginning. So let this pain of memories become your great strength and your resolve, your first action. First, after the seeds of inner choice have been sown and the memory of forgotten dreams has become life-giving moisture, the most important and most difficult stage begins, the transition from contemplation to action. Many souls stop right here, believing that great accomplishments require ideal conditions, large sums of money, influential connections, or a favorable confluence of circumstances. This profound delusion is the main reason why most people never realize their potential. The truth is that external resources have never been and will never be the main engine of creation. True creation does not begin with possessing anything, but with a pure and unclouded act of will that paves a path through the void, relying only on its own strength. He who waits for all the stars to align in one place will never be able to start his journey, for the universe responds not to our expectations, but to our actions. The most valuable capital available to every person is not paper currency or the number of contacts in an address book, but inner energy, focused attention, and unshakable persistence. This is the sacred fire that burns within, transforming every thought into reality and every small step into part of a great journey. This fire does not require external fuel. It is fueled by your self-belief, your willingness to work in silence, and your ability to maintain clarity of purpose despite all obstacles. One can imagine a great river that does not wait for a rock to move out of its way, but step by step, drop by drop, carves its own channel in it. Its strength is not in the abundance of water, but in its steady forward movement. Your most important asset is your ability to act when everyone around you says it is pointless and impossible. From the very first step, you will encounter resistance, and it will come not only from external circumstances, but also from your surroundings. Your relatives and acquaintances will not be able to understand your motives and will try to return you to your former comfort zone because your changes destroy their own worldview. They will laugh at your efforts, call you naive or even crazy. Their words will seem biting, their doubts reasonable. But let them speak, for their criticism is only a reflection of their own fears and unrealized ambitions. This external noise should not be a reason for you to stop, but a confirmation that you are moving in the right direction. Only he who has the courage to go against the current is capable of one day finding himself in an ocean of boundless possibilities. Therefore, the only path to real success is not waiting for the ideal moment, but immediate, purposeful action. Start small, but start now. Make one small effort after another, without looking at the result and without allowing doubts to silence your inner voice. The world of abundance opens only to those who are ready to create it with their own hands, their own mind, and their own will. Victory belongs not to the one who has everything from the very beginning, but to the one who, having only resolve, continues to move forward despite obstacles, ridicule, and inner doubts. The one who does not give up, in the end, discovers that all the external conditions he once dreamed of have long since become a part of his inner reality. The outside world is accustomed to applauding the bright and the obvious. The final result? The rapid ascent, the resounding success. However, the most fundamental changes always occur in profound silence, far from prying eyes and public approval. This is invisible work that no one sees or knows about until its fruits become an undeniable reality. Just as a magnificent tree begins its growth not with branches, but with roots that, in complete darkness and stillness, penetrate deep into the earth, so too are great achievements born from meticulous, daily efforts made in solitude and concentration. This secret work, this sacred labor upon oneself, is the true alchemy of the spirit, transforming inner substance into material success. Discipline is not merely a set of rules, but a conscious choice that a person makes every day, every morning, and every evening. It is the decision to rise before dawn, while the whole world is still asleep, to dedicate those priceless hours to one's craft, one's development, and one's inner growth. It is the readiness to work long evenings, when the body asks for rest and the mind for entertainment, because you know that every hour of such labor lays a brick in the foundation of your future temple. It is also the ability to give up the unnecessary, everything that distracts, consumes energy, and leads one away from the intended path. The rejection of empty conversations, of useless entertainment, of habitual laziness is not a sacrifice, but an act of purification that releases colossal energy for creation. It is through these small, repetitive acts of self-discipline that a new person is formed. Every early rise is a victory over weakness. Every refusal of temptation is a strengthening of the will. Every hour of focused work is an investment in one's future. From these barely noticeable actions, as if from individual grains of sand, a strong wall of character is built, which over time becomes unshakable. This work is similar to how a jeweler, secluded in his workshop, with incredible patience and meticulousness, cuts away everything superfluous to reveal the beautiful facet of a precious stone to the world. No one sees his thousands of movements. No one hears his doubts, but everyone admires the result of his solitary labor. Therefore, the most important and most valuable capital is not the money in the account, but your capacity for self-control and consistency. It is this foundation, built from daily, invisible work, that makes you capable not only of achieving success, but also of holding on to it. When you build your internal structure, you create a person who is worthy of abundance and capable of managing it. Your changes begin with discipline, and it is not a limitation, but the greatest act of freedom, for you are no longer a slave to your habits and fleeting desires. You are the master of your inner world, and this power will inevitably manifest in the external. After a firm decision has been made and the painstaking, invisible work in silence has begun, the moment inevitably comes when the changes start to manifest in the outside world. You are no longer who you once were, and your surroundings feel this shift. The people with whom you recently shared a habitual life can no longer recognize you. This transformation, which for you is the highest act of creation, for them represents something frightening and incomprehensible. They will try to return you to your old path, criticize your new habits, and laugh at your ambitions, because your ascent is a silent reproach to their own inaction. Their words and judgment are not an expression of evil, but a reflexive defense against anything that disturbs their quiet but stagnant world. Those around you will not be able to understand why you suddenly started waking up so early, why you gave up familiar entertainment, why you talk about things that seem so distant and unreal to them. They will try to find flaws in your actions, point out your every mistake, and wait with a sneer for your fall, so they can say with relief, "We told you it wouldn't work." This stage is one of the most severe tests for the spirit, because it strikes not at your abilities, but at your self-belief. However, this criticism is not a reason to stop or go back. On the contrary, it is the most accurate and undeniable sign that you are moving in the right direction, stepping beyond the ordinary and conventional. You are becoming a stranger to a world that is itself limited. One can compare this process to the work of a blacksmith who, in order to temper a sword, repeatedly heats it in the fire, then plunges it into icy water, and strikes it with a hammer. The fire is your inner decision, and the icy water and hammer blows are the criticism and resistance of the outside world. Without these trials, the metal would remain soft and brittle. Every blow, every ridicule, every attempt to pull you back, in reality, tempers your will and makes your inner core stronger. Resistance is not an obstacle, but a tool that helps you polish your facets, get rid of everything unnecessary, and turn into a hard, unbreakable diamond. It allows you to affirm your correctness and make your inner voice even more confident and strong. Ultimately, true strength does not come from the approval or praise of others. It is born in those moments when you are alone with your goals, and the world around you doubts and laughs. This inner fire that you have kindled must now burn even brighter, because it is the only source of warmth in the cold atmosphere of misunderstanding. You must learn to perceive criticism not as a verdict, but as feedback from the universe that tests your resolve. Victory in this struggle does not mean that you must convince everyone of your rightness, but that you must remain true to yourself, despite everything. It is in this act of unwavering faith in your path that true growth lies. After the resistance of the outside world has been met and has tempered your will, the time comes to understand what you have gained in place of the old. Many people mistakenly believe that freedom is the ability to do whatever you want, at any moment, without any limits or consequences. They see discipline as their enemy, rules as a prison, and perseverance as an unnecessary self-torturous practice. However, this profound delusion is the root of the most terrible unfreedom, because such a person becomes a slave to their momentary desires, fleeting whims, and impulsive decisions that ultimately lead them to destruction and dependence. True freedom does not lie in the absence of external boundaries, but in the acquisition of absolute power over oneself, over one's thoughts, emotions, and actions. The discipline that you build day by day is not shackles, but the greatest act of liberation. Just as a great artist does not draw chaotic lines, but follows the strict laws of composition and perspective to create a masterpiece, or as a master musician, by practicing scales for years, gains the ability to improvise, you gain true independence through self-control. Every habit that you consciously form, early rising, focused work, rejection of harmful passions, is not just an action, but a sacred decree that you establish for yourself. These laws of your internal kingdom determine your future reality. You move from a state where external circumstances and internal weaknesses govern you, to a state where you are the architect of your own destiny. A person who does not control themselves is like a ship without a rudder, which is carried along by the waves, subject to the wind and the current. They may for a moment feel the illusion of freedom, but in the end, they will inevitably be broken against the rocks. The one who has mastered the art of self-control is like a captain who, despite the storm, holds the helm steady, knowing where he is headed. His strength is not in the absence of the storm, but in his ability to control himself in the most difficult conditions. This is why habits determine not only your effectiveness today, but your entire future life. They are the bricks with which you build your tomorrow every day. Every time you choose discipline over momentary pleasure, you take a step toward your sovereign independence. Therefore, true power is power over your own body, over your mind, and over your spirit. And it is from this internal mastery that true power in the external world begins. When you stop being a slave to your emotions and laziness, you free your potential, opening the way to creating great things. You control your life not by managing external circumstances, which is always an illusion, but by managing yourself. You create your destiny, your wealth, and your legacy not through random luck, but through daily, conscious acts of will. And this freedom, gained through discipline, is the most reliable and most valuable treasure that can ever exist on earth. Many who are just embarking on the path of conscious creation mistakenly believe that with the acquisition of internal discipline and self-control, all difficulties and obstacles will disappear on their own. They think that the path to wealth and success is a smooth and straight road, paved with victories. However, the truth is much more complex and profound. The path of spiritual, psychological, and material growth is always connected with pain, doubt, and inevitable moments of decline, which are not mistakes but an integral part of the great process of transformation. Just as muscles do not grow without microtrauma and tension, so too, the strength of the spirit cannot be tempered without overcoming real trials. This is an immutable law of the universe. Everything that grows encounters resistance. Even upon achieving the first significant successes, you will face new, even more subtle tests of strength. Success can become a trap if it breeds complacency and pride. It can test your readiness to go further, not stopping at what you have achieved, not losing your initial focus. It can become an exam for the truth of your motives. Are you striving for abundance for the sake of external benefits, or for the sake of becoming the best version of yourself? These new challenges can be even more difficult than the first steps, because they strike not at your confidence in the beginning, but at your persistence in continuing. But every such trial, every setback, and every moment of doubt is not an obstacle, but a sacred teacher who comes to make you stronger and wiser. Every action you take, especially when it is difficult, builds not just a material result, but something much more important, the foundation of your future life. When you continue to work despite fatigue, when you get up after a fall, when you ignore the inner voice whispering about defeat, you are creating an invisible but indestructible core that will serve as your support in the darkest times. These moments of overcoming are not just items on a to-do list. They are the bricks that you personally lay in the foundation of your temple. It is they that make you the kind of person who is capable of holding onto and multiplying what he creates, because he knows the true price of every step. Therefore, to grow means to keep moving forward when it is hard, when it hurts, when all the internal and external voices are screaming that it is time to stop. It means accepting difficulties not as a punishment, but as a necessary price for greatness. True growth is not measured by the number of victories, but by the ability to maintain faith and direction in the most difficult conditions. Let every trial, every pain, and every doubt become for you not a reason for despair, but a source of incredible strength that will allow you to rise above any circumstances and become the creator of your destiny, not its victim. In the process of overcoming difficulties and trials, when external criticism is no longer able to break you and internal discipline has become your second nature, you begin to understand that the source of your strength is not the approval of others. Praise and recognition are like a temporary wind that can fill the sails, but is unable to move the ship forward in a calm. True, unshakable strength comes from within, from the very heart of your being. This is a sacred fire that was ignited at the moment of your inner choice and must now always burn, not fading for a single moment, regardless of external circumstances. This inner fire is not just a feeling or an emotion, but your fundamental why, your sacred engine that guides you through any darkness. This inner fire reminds you of your original goal, of the spark that first made you think about change. It is the living keeper of the promise you made to yourself in that very fateful hour. When you feel tired, when doubts try to creep into your mind, when success begins to lull you with its sweetness, this fire quietly but persistently reminds you why you started this great path. It is your internal navigation system that always points to true north, not allowing you to stray off course. It does not allow you to stop, because it knows that the peak you conquered today is only the starting point for the next ascent. The strength fueled by this inner flame is completely different from the one that seeks external validation. People whose motivation depends on the opinions of others are like candles that constantly need to be fueled from the outside. They burn brightly as long as there is a source, but quickly go out in solitude. Your strength is like an eternal flame in a temple that burns because an eternal divine spark is embedded in it. It does not seek admiration. It simply exists, and its light attracts those who are looking for the true path. With every new effort, with every overcoming of difficulties, you throw logs into this fire, and it burns brighter and stronger, illuminating not only your own path, but also the path of others. It is with this internal, inexhaustible source of strength that you become the person who is capable not only of achieving great success, but also of sustaining it throughout your life. Wealth, like any other form of power, requires inner mastery to manage. He who builds his success on the opinions of others will inevitably lose it when those opinions change. He who relies on his inner core, on his unquenchable fire, becomes invincible. This fire makes you the master of your reality, a person who creates not only money, but also a legacy, because his true value is not in the world of things, but in the world of the spirit. When your inner fire burns brightly and unquenchably, and your will is tempered in the furnace of trials, your outer life begins to transform, following your new inner state. Everything that once seemed an integral part of your existence, old habits, old paths, old surroundings, now seems alien and is slowly but surely left behind. You begin to intuitively avoid those places and those people who no longer resonate with your elevated frequency. This is not an act of arrogance or betrayal, but a natural process of spiritual and psychological separation, similar to how a snake sheds its old skin that no longer serves it. You no longer belong to the world that constrained you. You have moved to a new level of consciousness, and now your reality must correspond to this new state. The world that was recently laughing at your efforts now begins to notice your transformation. Your new energy, your inner confidence, and your ability to create incredible things from nothing become obvious to those around you. People who used to see only weaknesses in you now see strength. They will ask how you managed to achieve such success, how you were able to change so much, what your secret is. And they will look for the answer externally, in luck, in connections, in opportunities, not understanding that the only secret is your internal work. They did not see you get up before dawn, did not hear your doubts, did not feel the pain of your failures, and therefore they cannot understand that you are the result of your own creation. You are no longer the person you were at the beginning of the path, and this is one of the deepest and most liberating realizations. The former you, filled with fears, doubts, and habits, no longer exists. He remained in the past, like an old, scribbled draft that no longer matters. You have become a new entity, forged in the fire of discipline and tempered in the cold water of criticism. Your body has become a temple, your mind a tool, and your soul a guiding star. You are no longer just a person looking for your place in the world, but a master who creates his own world in his own image and likeness. And this realization gives you colossal strength and a sense of deep inner peace. At this stage, you understand that you are building not just money, but a legacy. The wealth created on the basis of your internal transformation is something more than the sum in your accounts. It is your personal masterpiece that will inspire others. It is an example that every person having only will and discipline is capable of changing their destiny. Your actions begin to influence the world not only materially, but also spiritually, because you have become living proof of the greatest truth. Everything external is only a reflection of the internal. You are creating a new reality not only for yourself, but also for those who will come after you, showing them that the path to abundance begins not with external chances, but with the internal decision to become the creator of your own life. At this stage of your transformation, when you have already left your old life behind, embraced challenges, and tempered your spirit, the time comes to understand the greatest truth of this path. Wealth is not a specific number on a bank account and not the amount of material goods that you own. Abundance is first and foremost an internal position, a state of consciousness that allows you to see opportunities where others see obstacles and create value where others see emptiness. The person who becomes truly rich first acquires this state within themselves. His entire external reality is merely a reflection of his inner strength and clarity. A billionaire is not a financial status, but a level of being that determines everything around him. This is precisely why everything always begins with the same thing, with absolute clarity and decisive action. With that first internal act of will that we discussed at the beginning of the path, from the moment you stopped waiting for a miracle and began to create it with your own hands. This is the greatest lesson you have learned. The external world responds not to your dreams, but to your actions. When you stopped being a passive observer and became an active creator, you launched a mechanism that inevitably led you to your current reality. You stopped hoping that you would be lucky and began to build the foundation of your luck every day, with small but consistent efforts that, over time, became your unshakable shield. Imagine a master who, having reached the pinnacle of his art, stops thinking about each individual line or stroke. His movements become intuitive. His creations are a natural continuation of his inner essence. He does not make masterpieces. He reveals them to the world. So it is with you. Having gone through all the stages of discipline and self-control, having achieved inner harmony, you stop focusing on the struggle. You begin to create from a state of inner peace and strength, and your life turns into a continuous flow of creation. This moment is not the end of the path, but only the beginning of a new, higher cycle of existence. You no longer seek wealth. You yourself are its source. And therefore, this story does not end where you receive your main treasure, but where you understand that you yourself are it. You have transformed from a person who sought wealth into a person who has become wealth itself. This is not a final point, but a starting point for a new life, where every day will be dedicated not to overcoming obstacles, but to revealing your boundless potential. Now you can create anything you desire, because you have created yourself. Your journey continues, but now it leads you through unexplored territories of abundance, where your only limitation is the depth of your own imagination.